Welcome home all. Welcome to SuperMex Nation on a very special night. So we're normally on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And yesterday obviously was June 6th. And you can see by the backdrop, June 6th was yesterday, the 75th anniversary of the D-Day invasion, World War II, June 6, 1944. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through some particulars. It's a little bit of an education tonight, but more of a not just a remembrance, but a not so subtle and not so, but definitely friendly reminder of things done and things that should be remembered. If we're not actively talking about them, then it is easy to forget. And I think we'll all agree that there's definitely some lost history, in our nation and in our country. And we all concern ourselves with what our kids are getting today, and to be honest with you, what we have gotten over an extended period of time. The further we move away in time from a specific date, the more difficult it becomes to remember not just the date on a calendar, but the importance of the date and the importance of the event that took place, because we are not firsthand experiencers, which is my rationale and the principal reason why I'm doing this particular episode tonight, because we are quite literally running out of those first-hand experiencers, those people that were actively engaged and actively involved with part of the D-Day invasion of 1944 and the time going back 75 years. Obviously, I'm not old enough. Most of you are not old enough. And there's not very many left in terms of percentage of the population that are old enough to remember those dates, those times, and those places. So this is my old history teacher reminder to talk about actively important events and important things that took place in our past that we literally can't forget. We cannot forget the importance of it, because there's so much that came out of not just this particular day, D-Day, but also, of course, World War II, that generation, when they came back, the things they did, etc. So it's again, a little bit of an education today, hopefully. If you guys know all of this stuff that I'm going to provide for you tonight, then outstanding. And I ask you to share your knowledge and information with others around you, not just your own immediate family, but people that you talk to, people that you talk with on a consistent basis. Not saying run up to people in a grocery store and say, hey, did you know this about World War II or D-Day? What I am asking is that if you are knowledgeable and if you understand the importance of remembering and reminding yourselves of the things that were done for us, quite literally today, so we can be here, then I'm quite literally in SuperMex Nation asking you not just to not forget for yourself, but also to not forget for those that you may know or those around you. So you do have that ability within your own immediate family, obviously, and I will say it. We definitely need to continue to remind our young people and these generations that come after us the importance of things that were done for them, quite literally, so that they can do the things that they're doing now. Because I think, let's be honest, if we had not involved ourselves in World War II, the outcome and this world would be quite different. There's a Philip K. Dick book about one that I've been watching on the channel. It's a look at, or a what if scenario. What if we had not, the Allies had not won World War II, and what if the Third Reich had won in conjunction or in cooperation with the Japanese Empire, and what would happen in a world today if Nazis and the Japanese Empire had won that war and controlled pretty much the globe, the world. It would be a much, much different place. I don't think we'd have freedom to speak. I don't think we'd have the freedoms that we have today. It would be a Nazi state. And I think most people still understand the relevance and the importance of using that term, Nazi, and what it means. It's not just a particular set of people that advocated for a specific set of things, but it would mean different in terms of how we live, how we do our thing, and what we're able to do. Again, freedoms would be out the window. I think that's a general consensus and understanding. It would definitely be different than what it is today. So walking back, I'm going to provide you with some information, and hopefully you guys maybe learn something a little bit different, and maybe you don't, but that's okay too, because at the very least, I got a little choked up myself, and I don't choke up very often, but it is a near and dear thing for me. I had both of my grandfathers on either side of the family, maternal and paternal, that were involved in World War II and served and pulled their duty. And so it does matter to me. In addition to them, there were multiple uncles. If I'm not mistaken, 1, 2, 3 on my mom's side, and 1, 2 at least on my dad's side. So I know of at least 5, two grandfathers and an additional 3 uncles, maybe more. I got to go look that up. But there were at least 5 in my immediate family that served in World War II. Brothers, because that was the case, right? So we're going to talk about that tonight. I'm going to get a little choked up. Hopefully not too much in front of you, but it does mean a lot to me. And I hope that the sincerity and the gravity with which I speak to you tonight maybe means something a little bit to you too. And maybe it moves you a little bit so that, it's not easily forgotten and you do go out beyond your immediate. It's nice, guys, to just get online and say, oh yeah, that's important, like it, cool, love it, I'm all American, I'm all patriot. But I think by the time we're done tonight, after we go through this, this process of my D-Day special, I think you're going to see the importance of not just feeling good about it for yourself, but quite literally what these gentlemen would ask you to, and ladies, what they would ask you is to not just do it for yourself, to make yourself feel good, but to extend on beyond your immediate and make others understand, relate, and feel good also. Feel good and understand the importance of it. And that's quite literally what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you up front in advance, and I'll probably ask you at the end too. But we've got a good show for you tonight. We're going to get through this material. I actually did some preparation. I've got some video, audio, and I've got some photos that kind of struck me. And you can get online. You can see all kinds of cool stuff. I took some that meant something to me a little bit more than others. I cherry-picked the ones that I thought were cool, and I have those for you tonight. Those that draw an illicit emotion and some type of thought having to do, with this particular day in our nation's history. So that's what we have for you tonight. We'll finish up. I didn't forget. I know I got chewed out a little bit about Tag That Track. We'll have some tracks for you tonight. Not a massive set, but just some. I'm going to let you listen to what I'm listening to right now, and then I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curve. I'm going to throw 1 or 2 in there that you did not foresee coming, and it's going to be kind of in line with today, and just being a cooperator, somebody that likes to cooperate with others and bring in and have, as my drill sergeant used to tell me, I got a massive tent, meaning he takes in everybody. Everybody's a part. Everybody can be a part of this. And that's what I do believe, the best part of America always has been, is that we have had a big tent, and the political times today notwithstanding, I will say, whatever happens from now going forward, like current times, nothing, absolutely nothing will stop us from understanding that the fact that we have had a big tent and that we have been a nation of immigrants for 240 plus years is the reason why we are the greatest country on the planet and the greatest country this world has ever seen. That's a fact. We can change it. You can do something to it. Maybe we stay the same. But that is a fact. I think everybody at least will acknowledge that, even in these times where facts don't seem to matter anymore. People can lie to you blatantly and you believe it because you want to believe them. I'm telling you not to. There's still stuff called facts. Interesting enough, John Adams, famous line, facts are stubborn things. Facts are stubborn things. Even when you don't want to believe them, they're still there because there's going to be a lot of people that know that they are. Okay, so let's get right into it. So I'm going to read you some particulars, some numbers, and then we're going to get into more of our video and our audio set, but let's get some numbers here. So D-Day, June 6, 1944, day of invasion. Invaders were the Allies, principally the United States, the United Kingdom, Aussies, the French, who were free because French at that time was occupied by the Nazis. And basically every, it wasn't the entire world, but it was a good look at most of the free Western and Western European, for sure, democracies that had fought, were either conquered by, were about to be conquered by, and then others outside of it. For instance, Australia wasn't conquered, but they fought with us. The British were not conquered. They could not defeat the island and conquer the island, so they fought with us. And it was all those allies, the allies, not the axis of evil, Germany and Japan, and others that a lot of people don't know about. It was larger coalitions. But so all these people, these allies, basically invaded, trying to retake what was Europe, because continental Europe was almost entirely a Nazi empire, the Thousand-Year Reich that had begun. So it was the Allies that were invading, trying to retake France and the rest of occupied Western Europe. Okay? Location, Normandy Beach, France. That's for those of you guys that know, if you look on a map, it's the extreme northwest corner of France. And Normandy, interestingly enough, another Norman invader was the reason why we have a Norman invasion of England going back a long time ago, 1066. But it was Normandy and the Normandy beaches in France that were invaded by the Allies to get back on a foothold into Western Europe so we can launch an offensive to retake Western Europe and push the Nazis back and win the war. Okay? Casualties. Now, I've never really heard like a very, very specific number because I don't think it was possible, I still don't think it's possible to ever really get a true handle on how many casualties there were. So on this one, I took this off facts.net. It says in excess of 12 to 15,000 on both sides, for the most part. And I remember this from, I think it was Dr. Gade at Fresno State University a long time ago when I had a military history course. I want to say that it was, and general rule of thumb, for those of you guys who don't know, going back many, many years, many millennia, if you are the attacking force and you are attacking an entrenched force, meaning they're set up, they've got their position, and they're in defense behind fortified positions. They've got, you're coming to them and they've got access, line of sight on you. And they've got things like on the Normandy beaches, barbed wire, picks, dug in, entrenched position material that could spike you or hurt you on the way up, mines. It's general rule of thumb. You want to plan at least, and I think in this case, I want to say it was 12 to 15,000 casualties on both sides. The majority of them overwhelmingly were the Allies, because they have to take position. They have to take those people out of position that are already entrenched. So my point being is if you don't know military, you don't know military history and tactics, etc., the reality is the attacker is at the disadvantage. That's why if you're going to attack, you attack with overwhelming force, because for every defender, and this goes back millennia, multiple millennia to old days, I mean, we're talking about caveman days, you want to, general rule of thumb, you're looking at 4 or 5. You want at least 4 or 5 to 1. So for every defender, you want at least 4 or 5. And in this case, you basically lost around 8 to 9, maybe 10 persons, allies, to every one defender, German defender. That's the way it is when you attack an entrenched position. And that was the case for the Normandy Beach, obviously. So we did catch them by surprise. We'll get into that a little bit. To a degree, they did know that we were going to attack somewhere. They didn't know where specifically. And there were things done on our end to make sure that they did not know specifically. So we did kind of catch them by surprise, and that definitely helped. Because if they had the ability to reinforce those positions with a greater number of people, the invasion might have been repulsed. And then it would be a different world. It would be a different look. Maybe we attack again, maybe we continue, but that did matter. Okay, that did matter. So we lost, I want to say, a good 8 to 9, maybe 10 personnel, 10 allies to every German on an unequal footing. So for every 8, 9, 10 of our guys that were killed, they maybe lost 1. Again, because they're entrenched, they're in fortifications. They have material that's set out to deter, stop, alter, or harm our troops as we come into them. And there's no choice. We have to attack that beach. We have to get through it. Okay? So a good 12 to 15,000 casualties on both sides on just that one day, and it was bloody. Result was an Allied victory that eventually led to liberation of Western Europe. General fact. Leader, my dog, Dwight David Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander, would later become sitting president. And I think some of you guys clued in. I don't necessarily talk about my personal political preferences. You guys know the deal with what I try to do. I try to get people to get to common ground and consensus. I do have some hardline stuff that I believe in. One of them, and I think my point was that I wanted to maybe give you guys an answer. I'm not telling you what I am specifically, right? But I told you what I am like generally, because I do believe that's what we really need right now. We get way too specific and too tied to one thing. The next thing you know, you have a party system and then people can't work with each other anymore. That's a problem today. Not back then. A little bit different. I'm not talking about the party system. I'm talking about people cooperating with other people. Dwight David Eisenhower was a master at building this coalition. He appeased, and that's not always bad. He cajoled, that's not always bad. He convinced, definitely not always bad. And he got the different alliance members to work together under his leadership. Un-American, a young country, talking to these other older countries that have been there a longer time. We were the young, brash, upstart, aggressive, strong country. And so Dwight David Eisenhower was the Supreme Allied Commander, and he really did make that coalition work. If it were a different, like I could say this, because I love this guy too, but if it were Patton, it would have been a different critter. It would have been an entirely different scenario, an entirely different situation, because Patton wasn't as much of a coalition builder, if you know what I mean. He was all blood and guts. And in his capacity, that was outstanding and good. For this, what we needed here, Operation Overlord, the D-Day invasion, which was the term for it, Operation Overlord, we absolutely needed somebody like Dwight David Eisenhower. Calm, cool, collected, and brilliant. A brilliant strategist, a brilliant tactician, and a master at building coalitions and moving and massaging egos. And I'm talking about some incredible egos. Montgomery for the British was a massive ego. Patton was a massive ego. We had some really, really good people that had those massive egos. But Dwight David Eisenhower had the ability, and I will say the intellect, because there is definitely intellect involved with seeing the necessity of getting people to work together. There's a not so subtle hint at what I'm doing with you. Yes, I think you guys get that point. There is definitely intellect and intellectual component to getting people to work together, removing them from their blindings in terms of the things they hear, say, or do, so they can cooperate and work in conjunction with others to move us to a better place. That is Dwight David Eisenhower. And so my point back to what I was going to tell you about the political spectrum, for me, I think you guys remember that. I did tell you, if somebody asked me where I was politically in terms of philosophy or ideology, it's real simple. Harry Truman, Dwight David Eisenhower, John F. Kennedy. Those are my guys. Those three, in my opinion, were the reason why we are who we are today in terms of the power, the perseverance, the prestige, and the deep and entrenched belief sociologically all over the world of American greatness. They are, to me, what we are when we are at our best. I'm going to say that again. Harry Truman, Dwight David Eisenhower, Operation Overlord Commander, Supreme Allied Commander, and John F. Kennedy. And you guys all know where I'm at with that dude, okay? Nobody's a saint here, but those guys were singularly unique and special. That's my political continuum. So Dwight David Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander. And there's a whole bunch of, movies. I know we did this show on a radio program not even half a year ago. At the end of the last year, something like that, we did war movies. I gave you my list of war movies. I'll put that out again if we need to. But in this one in particular for D-Day, The Longest Day is definitely a movie you want to take a look at because it has to do with that longest day. And then Saving Private Ryan, done by Spielberg. That opening scene on the beaches, wow, I mean, just incredible. I mean, it grabs you. I wasn't there, clearly, but the urgency, the intensity, the sincerity of conveying all of those disparate emotions in this scene that you just go like, oh man, you really felt it. You saw people dying, getting killed, whacked out. It was just a panoply of emotions and drama. All right, and that's just great movie making, just great filmmaking, right, KP? That's just great filmmaking. That's what a masterful, film producer and a masterful director can do to you. They can move you through the power of image and the power of drama. So yeah, Saving Private Ryan, that's a great flick. So's The Longest Day, and there are some others, but I highly recommend that. Definitely for that first opening scene, I can tell you right now, Saving Private Ryan, I think it may be the best film when it comes to capturing the closest you can get to the essence of what D-Day was. Again, I don't know because I wasn't there, but I can feel that. I can feel that. And anything that can do that to you and make you feel that day, that's worth a look and a listen, I say. Here you go. Okay, So D-Day was the largest seaborne invasion in the history of mankind. I'm going to give you the particulars and the numbers. Nearly 150,000 Allied soldiers, 150,000 people, faced about 50,000 German soldiers on the coast of Normandy after being deployed there by airplanes and amphibious military vehicles, the largest amphibious assault in the history of mankind. That was just the beginning. More than 80 days of combat followed after, additional, under Operation Overlord, during which over 1 million troops fought for the Allies and around 400,000 for the Germans. So obviously it wasn't done once they rolled up on the beach. There were a lot of things that had to take place. They had to establish foothold, they had to reach ground, and they had to establish a forward operation so that they wouldn't get repulsed, back off. Because here's an interesting fact, truism. There was that manner of surprise. Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, a masterful tactician, masterful strategist, one of the very best that the Germans had to offer. Make no mistake, and let's be clear, I'm speaking strictly from the factual component. I don't admire Nazis, trust me, by far no, not at all. But you have to respect the quality of their tactics and their strategy in the form of their generals. They had some very, very good and intelligent people doing their jobs, okay? Erwin Rommel was that good. Fortunately for us, they weren't sure, or at least he wasn't, what day the operation was going to take place. He actually went home because there was supposed to be foul weather, bad weather. They thought that couldn't take place, that they didn't have anything to worry about. He went home to visit with his family, away from the front, away from the beaches. And because he did, that's a good thing for us, because that guy was a masterful tactician, a masterful strategist, one of the very best generals that Germany had to offer. He was not there. Good for us. Big man upstairs looking out for our guys, right? You know how it goes. So he was gone. At the time of the invasion, Hitler was sleeping. He was asleep. And his high command did not want to wake him up to let him know what was going on because they were afraid to wake him up. Think about that. So what does this all mean? It means that the Germans could not reinforce and establish a repulsion effort on their part as a military. So it all worked out for us and our guys, our people, the Allies. They did not have some of their best personnel in place, in command, their leadership, and they were not able to mount effectively and with some precision and some quickness an effective repulsion effort to kick us back into the water, kick us back into the ocean. So all this stuff worked out. I mean, it was, when you really go through the particulars of the entire thing, there were a lot of things that went in our favor, including the weather, by the way. We had a window of about 3 days. We were supposed to go on the 4th, June 4th. We'd be talking about this a few days ago. I was supposed to go on June 4th, but the weather was so bad that they moved it and they kicked it to the 6th. That actually helped us because the Nazis were not aware, or they were not understanding of what was going on. They didn't know which day it was going to come, and they didn't know where. They just knew it would be somewhere in France, right? We benefited in that fashion too. Big man upstairs looking out for us weather style. You know what it is. So all of that was part and parcel of this particular invasion. So again, the largest seaborne operation, the largest amphibious assault in modern warfare and warfare in general, going back throughout history. Numbers, right? Populations increase. So I'm going to give you those again. 150,000 Allied soldiers faced about 50,000 German soldiers on the coast of Normandy. 5,000 landing and assault craft, nearly 300 escort vehicles, and nearly 300 minesweepers make the D-Day invasion the largest seaborne in history. Started at about 6:30 in the a.m., with airborne units being deployed hours before, after midnight, all through the 0 dark 30 hours, in advance of the invasion, to get behind enemy lines. Obviously, they're being dropped behind enemy lines, and we're beginning our invasion while we have paratroopers doing their damage behind enemy lines to make it possible for our boys to get on the shore and to move forward, move into forward operation, and then to establish a perimeter, a defensive perimeter, just in case there was a defensive repulsion effort on the part of the Germans. That did not happen. We were able to get our boys behind enemy lines, paratroopers, and we were able to establish beachhead, get on the beaches, and begin to set up a defensive perimeter just in case we were to be assaulted in response. It all worked out. It's benefited us good, and I'll say because we had some very, very intelligent people that were in command of our units and our assault and our strategy and our tactics. I'll give you this little sidebar. For those of you guys that don't think military people are, we're just all kind of dunderheads and, we're all something in vinegar and we'll just go shoot you. No. There are some extremely intellectually gifted people in the United States military, extremely gifted. People that can literally do anything else. IQ points off the charts. Fortunately for us, we still have people that choose to serve when they can go do something else. That's a good thing for us. Let's hope it stays that way for as long as I'm alive, at least, and maybe you too. Be thankful that there are some extremely, and I'm going to quote, brilliant, absolutely brilliant people, mental giants that serve our nation's military. This was definitely the case at this time as well. Some extremely brilliant tacticians, extremely brilliant strategists, people that really understood, grasped things on a deeper level. It's not just being a math genius. It's not just being a science genius or a literary genius. It's being a genius on a macro scale, socio and psychologically. That's what it takes. Not to mention the physical, obviously. But who forgets, right? Mens sana in corpore sana. Basically, a sound mind residing in a sound body. That's my principle. That's what I believe the military is. A sound mind in a sound body. That's what you get for D-Day. Okay. Little aside here. Operation Bodyguard was a deception designed to enable D-Day landings. There was all this other stuff going on. Operation Bodyguard was created and implemented to throw off the Germans from knowing what we were doing. Operation Overlord might not have even been executed if not for the deception that was named Bodyguard. Operation Bodyguard was a fictional operation designed to mislead the German command about the real time and location of the invasion. Several sub-operations under the common name of Bodyguard, including Operation Zeppelin, Operation Fortitude, and Operation Grafum, were carried out in 1944 to confuse the Germans, and they succeeded, obviously, making the D-Day landing in June 1944 a complete surprise to the enemy. So there was all this, you'd call it subterfuge, but it was misdirection as well. There were all these other operations that were leaked or going on, and the Germans basically were baffled and, basically confused by all of these different things. They got to a point where like, yeah, sure, another one, right? There's another operation coming. So then when it actually happened, they were surprised, okay? Again, masterful people, brilliant people, doing things on a psychological level that, we haven't seen in a while. And again, I'm gonna cast some sunshine out to military personnel that are extremely bright. You guys need to know that. You have some very, very intelligent people serving you right now in uniform. Okay, a few more here. I think we're good there. I'll give you the big numbers. And so what we're going to do now is, and I took some time to do this. So, aside from the numbers, because you can kind of get that, you can pull up, on Bing or Google, and you can do, what I'm doing here, reading some things and educating yourself on the importance of it. But what moves somebody beyond that? What moves somebody to learn more about a particular event in American history, other than just being a little more knowledgeable? What moves them to want to know more? And what moves them to want to understand, like with the deeper concern? And how does that move us forward? That's primarily where I'm a little more concerned. And I'm going to say that about tonight as well. We can give you the simple and the tangible, right? I mean, they're in history books. Facts matter. Facts are stubborn things. They're still there. So you can do that on your own, I would hope. But you got to move somebody. And I'll speak to my former students. I had to motivate you to want to learn. I had to get you to want to learn. I can't just throw numbers, facts, figures, and dates at you. I had to give you more than that. I had to give you a rationale, a reason, and a want to be able to do that. Or else you never would have done it, correct? You get the point. So that's quite literally why I'm doing the show tonight, to draw focus on something that was important. Not just important to me, it should be important to all of us, by the way. It should be important to everybody. This is one of the most important dates in American history. I will say that. It is that important, ladies and gentlemen. It is quite literally one of the main reasons why we are who we are today, the greatest country on the face of the earth. This right here. If we had not stood up, if we have not fought, if we had not allied, and we had not been apart, then it could be a different world. Maybe we, in the Philip K. Dick novel and The Man in the High Castle, I think I've talked to you guys about that before. I think they're in the 3 seasons now. It's on, I think I want to say it's on Netflix. 3 seasons, The Man in the High Castle. It's a hypothetical, a what if Germany and Japan had won World War II. What they're saying, what the gist of the novel is that if that were the case and we had perhaps never entered the war, then Nazi Germany would have basically gobbled up all of Europe. I'll throw this in for a little sidebar, and an important one, by the way. The Soviets at the time, the Soviet Union back then, was fighting them on the Eastern Front, Germany to Russia. They were engaged, and we're talking about millions of people. The Eastern Front was far more savage than what was going on the Western Front as we opened up the Western Front. These conversations and talks were being had by Stalin and the other leadership, Allied commanders, Churchill, Roosevelt, etc. They were talking the whole time. The Soviets, the Russians, were getting obliterated and savaged in number. Safe estimate, 25, ready for this, 25 to 30 million Russians died on the Eastern Front. Yes, that's far more than any other one country lost. They paid a heavy price for their efforts on the Eastern Front, fighting the Germans. They wanted us to open up the Western Front because then it would force Nazi Germany to commit to multiple fronts. I had an old commander tell me one time, you never fight wars on multiple fronts unless you have absolutely no choice. Fortunately for us, Hitler had a big ego. He did things he wasn't supposed to. He didn't listen to his military personnel. He didn't listen to his high command. He thought he knew everything, and he thought he was a masterful tactician because he knew everything. And he made some fundamental mistakes. That is a simple truism from an old military guy to you out there, for some of you that are military. You never fight wars on multiple fronts unless you have no choice. Hitler actually had a choice. He just didn't listen. So they opened up the Western Front by invading Normandy, and what it did was it allowed us to pincer the German Empire in the center, and we basically crashed in on them, and that's how we ended up winning the war. But I want to draw that attention. In excess of 25 million, 25 to 30, and we don't even know the exact number, 25 to 30 million of the Russian people, of the Soviet Empire, back then that died on the Eastern Front, far more than the Western. So the dirty work they did over there allowed us to push in on the other side, on the Western side. Need to know that. So what I've got for you today, in addition to that, is I'm going to tell you up front, I'm going to front load you. You got to like that, because I always tell the truth. I'm going to front load you. I'm going to let you listen to a few things that absolutely still to this day, flabbergast and move me as an American. And I picked these two in particular because they even if you weren't born at that time, and if you listen to these things, and if you feel the value of the red, white, and blue running through your system, you can't help but feel good about things that they did for us, quite literally for us. So we're going to run two from you, and I want you to listen to them. I'm literally making you on SuperMex Nation tonight on cheap date night. So the first one's going to be Franklin Delano Roosevelt in a prayer that he said, or that he gave out on D-Day to the American people and to the world for posterity. But here it is to listen to. Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
1944, President Franklin D. Roosevelt announced on the radio that Allied troops had entered Rome. News overshadowed by the announcement of the D-Day invasion at 6:30 a.m. on June 6th.
That evening, President Roosevelt read a prayer to the nation as American, British, and Canadian troops took beachheads on the coast of Normandy.
Almighty God, our sons, pride of our nation, this day have set upon a mighty endeavor, a struggle to preserve our republic, our religion. Thy will be done, Almighty God. Amen.
Bibles handed out to troops included this inscription from Roosevelt: As Commander-in-Chief, I take pleasure in commending the reading of the Bible to all who serve in the armed forces of the United States.
Brought to you by Museum of the Bible.
Okay, so that's Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, our president at the time of the war, the longest serving president in the history of the United States, and the guy that got us through it, right? And he gives a prayer, and man, I just like, whew. If you can't, I mean, I couldn't imagine, because I can't. I wasn't alive at that time, but I cannot imagine, you know, the strength and again the gravity of his words, listening to those words on a day that, and here's the difference. Here's the day. Now watch this. On a day that everybody in America, for the most part, just about everybody in America felt invested in what was going on and what was about to happen. And I'm going to tell you why. Because at that time, during World War II, the percentage of personnel, the percentage of Americans that were in uniform and serving was far larger than it is today. Okay, for one, we're a lot bigger. 330 million people now. It's way less back then, okay? But the percentage back then of the personnel that served, because it was a world war, was much greater. What does that mean? What it means is that there was somebody you knew that was either in or about to be in or that had died in that war. There was relevance. There was relation. There was feeling. There was emotion. Because you knew somebody. And maybe you lost somebody. And maybe somebody was going. An uncle, a brother, a sister, a mother, a father. That's the difference then today. Maybe we don't feel to the same degree, even though, and I'm going to say it, and don't take this the wrong way, ladies and gentlemen, but it's a fact. We love to talk about how much we love our people in service. We love to talk about, I hear this all the time, it's hysterical. Oh, I love people and women in service, men and women in service. Yet they turn around and they bash millennials. You know who's serving right now? Millennials. Think about that. Put that in your pipe cleaner. Think about that next time you bash a millennial or their entire generation. Because the generation that's fighting right now for us, our freedoms, our servicemen, they're millennials. Okay? Run this back to that time. It was extremely unlikely, living in a neighborhood, living in a family, that you didn't know somebody that was serving or had served in a military branch during World War II. Because it was a greater percentage of our population that served at that time than today. It's in the small percentages, okay? Less than 1% actually serves now, and it's only a handful of percentage that actually is vet or serving current. It's just a smaller amount of population. Those of you guys that have a brother, a father, a sister, a mother that serve, you understand what I'm talking about. And specifically if they're combat personnel, if they're infantry or combat arms, which is tankers, combat engineers, etc. You feel it a little more acutely because their likelihood of being wiped out or being killed is much higher than somebody that's not at the enemy line. Splitting hairs here, but it's the truth, okay? So I want to make sure we're clear about that and distinctions there. That was Franklin Delano Roosevelt's prayer on D-Day. Now I'm going to tug at your heartstrings and your emotions, and let's see how American you are. Let this move you. There's nothing wrong with that. And watch what I'm going to do right now to you. You ready? This isn't a Democrat or Republican thing. How about that? So put aside your partisan garbage for tonight. You guys know the deal. And just feel all American. Remove the D in Republican from your thought today. Remove the Democrat and Republican thing from your thinking when we're talking about real Americans that didn't put a party before their country. Let this move you a little bit. This is Dwight David Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander, and later President of the United States. This is Dwight David Eisenhower addressing the soldiers that were about to go give their lives for this country. I can't imagine, and I'm going to say it, I'm a soldier, but I can't even imagine what that is, to go tell these young kids the importance of what they're doing. And without having to say it because it's obvious, they may not make it. You might be looking dead men in the eyes. And you have to convey a message, and you have to get them to perform at the greatest of their ability, because anything less means failure. And anything less than that, failure, becomes much, much worse. They understood the gravity and the importance of what they were doing, so much so that they were willing to give their lives to do it. Here's my dog, Dwight David Eisenhower.
Force. You are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened. He will fight savagely. But this is the year 1944. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of 1940-41. The United Nations have inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle, man to man. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in the air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of war, and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us all beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking.
I hope you guys enjoyed that. There's number 2. Watching that, it just kind of, it just makes you think, what they were like and what we're like now, the differences and the sincerity and the importance of the things that they did and what they had to do. I'm sitting there watching that, right? And I it's like it gets me every time. But, I'll say this, listening to that kind of commander, somebody that is in it, somebody that has done it, somebody that with certainty would give his life the exact same way that he's asking you, to give your life. Somebody that's done it, somebody that's been there, somebody that would never ask you to do something that he's not willing to do himself. That's American. That's about as American as it gets, ladies and gentlemen. That's all American. And so I'm sitting there watching, I'm saying to myself, I think, historically and relatively, I think about that time, I think about our time. Right? And we do have great commanders, by the way. And I had a commander once tell me, his name was Lieutenant Colonel or Colonel Honore. He ended up, retiring as a general. The time with him, and he stated that America will always have great commanders, provided America lets them do their thing. Think about that. America will always have great people that stand up, heed the call, and give their lives to their country. Give their lives. And I'm not talking about loss in terms of getting killed. I'm talking about giving everything they are for their country. Giving your life, your entire adult life, to this profession, this thing, for the importance of what this country is. Okay, so I'm writing collaboration and cooperation. People working together, people doing things together. So, this isn't a political night tonight, but I'm going to say it because this is the importance of what I'm talking about to you right now. I doubt, with some sincerity and seriousness, that Joe America didn't turn to Jack America and say, hey, homeboy, are you Democrat or Republican? We're about to go get shot at. Are you Democrat or Republican? No, that didn't happen. I think you all understand my point. That didn't happen. We need to start thinking along those lines again. You don't turn to your buddy and ask him about his differences with you. You turn to your buddy and ask about his commonalities with you. What makes us the same? What makes us American? Because if we thought like that, ladies and gentlemen, we wouldn't be living in this hyper-toxic mess that we call our political system. Yes, and I know if you're on one side, you blame that side. And if you're on this side, you blame that side. And I'm telling you, this background here, that didn't happen because we did things that way back then. That did not happen. There was no D-Day victory if that's who we were back then. Grow up, America. We're acting like a bunch of children now. Quite literally, because the adults, those guys and those gals, gave us the ability to still be here. I'm going to say it again, and I'm chuckling as I say it, because I know I didn't. I didn't turn to my buddy in the foxhole and say, hey, man, are you Democrat or Republican? You libertarian or you green? Are you conservative or liberal? It did not matter. You know why? Because there are more important things in this country and in this world than that. Remember this. Remember that. If you remember nothing else from tonight, that's what they would tell you. That's what they would tell you. That's what they would convey to you. Think about that. All right, what I've got next for you is a set of still photos. And I think what we're going to do, KP, is we're going to put them up one at a time. Now I'm going to say something about it or move to the next one, and I'll give you the green light as we go, KP. So let's go ahead and run the first one. Okay, that's an image of some Brits, if you could tell by the headgear, some Brits. And this was a shot taken from the backside as the men moved up onto the beaches. And this was after some of the beachhead was established. But I took some variety here because it wasn't just Americans, ladies and gentlemen. It was a lot of different countries that all cooperated. Notice the tone for the night: cooperation, collaboration. They worked together. They got along because they had to. They made each other get along. These were the Brits, and this was a back shot over the shoulder as they walked up onto the beach. And after the beachhead was established and they started moving things on, you can see the tanks, that are beginning to roll onto the beach. Let's go to the next one, KP. And this one right here, okay, so this is kind of an iconic shot. I mean, you can't talk about D-Day, you can't go on Google, Bing, or anything else, pull up an image of D-Day without this being like front and center and definitely one of the main ones. All right, so what you're seeing is, for those of you guys that don't know, these are amphibious personnel carriers. What they do is they get into the backs of these things, they get shot off from the ships, and they run right up onto the beach. The back hatch drops, the back hatch, there you go, thank you. So that hatch drops off, and then the soldiers run out onto the beach once the amphibious assault vehicle gets onto ground. Okay, not on the water, obviously, but right up onto the ground. The hatch drops, they run out, and withering fire right down on them. Okay, let's go to the next one. Yeah, and just hold them here until I get ready. So again, so this is just a different look. Same situation, same personnel carrier. These are American soldiers, and they're literally moving to the beach, and they're not quite out yet because they're still in the water. They're still in, they're not quite up onto land. They're still in the water, and what they're doing is they're watching as other amphibious units are landing, and they're watching their buddies get shot as they're running up onto the beach. And I'm going to say it, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, that's got to be some of the scariest, some of the scariest minutes you can imagine as a soldier, watching and knowing that that's coming to you next, and just hoping and praying the big man upstairs, doesn't have a bullet with your name on it. That's all you can ask. But again, personnel carrier, amphibious personnel carrier, with our soldiers getting ready to land and go into that assault of arms fire coming at them with death. Death coming at them. Okay, next one. There you go. Different look. This one, obviously, the beachhead has been a little more established. I mean, clearly they're not being fired upon. They've gotten up over those hills there, the backdrop over the beach, up on the ridge. And so now they have the ability to bring in more, the heavier equipment, like the personnel carriers and the vehicles. You don't get to bring those up onto the beach first, ladies and gentlemen. You got to get soldiers on the beach first. The soldiers have to move up to establish ground, get up on the high ground to give the back units, the units trailing, the ability to get up on the beach after they establish a perimeter and they hold position, so that they can't be attacked anymore. Then you bring up the vehicles, then you bring up the additional, then you bring up other troops that are in other roles, not combat, but perhaps medical, perhaps engineering, perhaps communication, etc. So you bring those troops after you've established beachhead and you've established a perimeter so that you can't be attacked in return and repulsed back into the ocean. Next, KP. There you go. So I think these are some of the Aussies. I mean, obviously the headgear, you can tell they're a little different than ours were, and the weaponry was a little bit different. These are some of the Aussies getting off and moving up the beachhead. You can see the back in there, the lower left corner. I got this one off BBC News. Get busted for that. Oh well. Put me in military love jail. That's what you do with me. Let's go to the next one. Look at those young men. Look at those young dudes. So I'm gonna hold here for a second, and I want to get a good look at these guys. Okay, these gentlemen, I'm not going into details with every single one of them and all the awards they won. We'd be here a long time and it'd be all night. But what I want to point out is they're indicative of those guys, right? These are the people that survived that assault and survived that hell that they had to literally walk, crawl, run across to survive and to safety. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, just about all of them, I mean, there are none that aren't in their 90s and beyond. Some of them are now 100 and over 100 years old. That's who these guys are, okay? So what does that mean to you, and why am I doing this? Why am I stressing and emphasizing the importance of it? Because, ladies and gentlemen, they're old. All right, let's just drop it on the table. No games. This is SuperMex Nation. Let's get to it. They're old, and they're not lasting longer. So it's extremely important that we not just acknowledge but recognize, and more important, carry forward the gravity of the things they did so that you and I can exist and actually sit here and talk about politics and day-to-day life. Okay, these are a couple young, 4 young bucks that made it on the beach that day, still alive today for the 75th anniversary. And I think you guys know where I'm going with this. It's extremely, extremely unlikely that every year that goes by, the number doesn't continue to diminish, and eventually we're not going to have any left. But damn it, while they're still here, we need to make sure they get their damn attention for giving us the ability to live the life the way we do. It's that important. Okay, so those are 4 young bucks. I think the next one's the group. All right, so this is the ceremony where President Macron and President Trump spoke in commemoration of the D-Day 75th anniversary, and you just have a whole load of them. What I really like here, and I'm gonna bring this up now, is that you have the gentlemen with their wives, some of them, and some of these ladies, they weren't. I mean, back then there were no combat soldiers that were female. Okay, but I think we all know, and let's get general understanding here, because these guys will say the same damn thing. Women played a vital and extremely important role in the war in a variety of ways. We can do a entire show, SuperMex Nation, on Rosie the Riveter and the concept of Rosie the Riveter, which is more and bigger now. And women that want to feel strong use that image. It's a damn great image, right? It's a different time, but it's still a moving and compelling image to the strength of the women of America, who stood with, behind, and for their guys as they went off to war and they went and got shot at. And a lot of these women, they lost husbands, okay? They lost brothers. They lost fathers. So they definitely feel and have the same involvement and the same commitment to this country that others did throughout. So let's not, definitely let's not forget the ladies and gentlemen, because the truth is, again, if there were no ladies doing the work they did, there is no war effort, and we don't get to conclude that war effort, and we don't get to win World War II, because it was a total package of cooperation on the parts of Americans. Women did their thing, men did their thing, and the result was we won the war. Okay, so I really dig on this one. Again, this number is continuing to diminish because the ladies and gentlemen of that era are all in their 90s or older, and they're dying. So I'm going to say this just as an aside before we move on here. If you know somebody, let's do that right now. If you know somebody or you had somebody that served, not just on D-Day, but in World War II, let's go loud that up on the page tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I want to see when I get home tonight on the Facebook page, YouTube if you're watching on that, post your grandfather, your father, your great uncle, whatever. If they were involved in World War II, I want you to post who they were. We've done this before. Put the name, maybe rank and serial number, maybe the location of where you hail from, where they hail from. But let's share that tonight, all right? Let's give some attention, some positive attention to some damn good things that go on instead of all the negative that I get bombarded with every day, including by some of you guys, by the way. Some of you guys need to relax a little bit and lighten the hell up, Right? It's a good world out there. Stop being so damn negative and pointing out the bad all the time. Point the bad out with the good too, okay? So let's do that tonight. When I go home, I want to see you post. You guys that are watching right now, I'm talking right to you. Post tonight on the Facebook page, if you're already there, who you know that served, maybe died, maybe lived in World War II for this country. Okay? Post your relatives. Let's make it mean something for tonight. Is that the last one, KP?
One more.
All right, let's get that last one. Oh, yeah, I love that one. All right. Oh, absolutely. Okay, so just so we're clear, guys. All right, you see that little situation there? That guy, I think that guy in particular, there was more than one. So this happened just a few days ago. This gentleman was 97 years old. 97 years old. And he jumped out of a plane. He got off and said, I'd do it again if I'm here next year. That's a great generation. So it wasn't just him. I don't know. I have to go look for the exact number, but there were more than a few old timers, old young bucks that went up in a plane and jumped out. These were the paratroopers that jumped out on D-Day. If that isn't cool, I don't know what the hell is on a Friday night, cheap date night. That's about as good as it gets. All right, I want you to remember that image because when I saw that, I'm like, okay, that's a great generation. That's the greatest generation. Those guys aren't, I sat there and I was like, one, I hope I live that long. I hope I get within 20, 30 years of that guy, for starters, right? Seriously, I hope I live that long. I hope I'm honored enough to be an American that lives that long in this country. I really do. And that's like all power to the big man upstairs. But I hope I live that long. And if I do, and I make it into my 90s, I hope I have the guts, the cojones, to do what that young dude did. That's pretty cool. So there was more than a few. These young guys that jumped on D-Day. They jumped again a few days ago on D-Day commemoration. And they came down, and I saw one of them. They hit, and he was first because you have to sit the gentleman or the paratrooper in front of the guy who's operating the parachute, right? The parachute. So they jump with them in tandem, attached. So one of them that came down, I like almost cringed, but they landed, and the older guy, the old paratrooper from World War II, hit the ground, and it looked like his knees buckled under him. And I was like, I swear to God, I thought to myself, I hope he didn't get hurt. And so he got up, and he was like all spry, like nothing, everything was good. And I'm going to say it again. I hope I live that long, and I hope I have the vim and the vigor that those young guys have. Because that's absolutely astounding, incredible to me. That is the greatest generation. Those guys, man, what do you fear? Seriously, what do you fear anymore? When you do that, when you see that, when you live that, what do you fear, America? Probably don't fear anything anymore. That's why they came back and they constructed the greatest country the world has ever seen. Interstate commerce system, our forms of economy. And whether you like it or not, don't get political on me, but the social programs that we have, including, the FDR New Deal and the outlet of it that basically sustained, who we are as a people in programs. It was these guys and gals that did all that stuff for us. It doesn't get, much better than that, at least in my eyes. We're wrapping up here. I'm going to get to tag that track. I'm running a little too, like you said. I told you, this stuff does get me. It does bother me. I'm not hyperbolizing it. I'm not trying to be overly sentimental with you, but I was raised on this stuff. I was raised by, one grandfather educated me more on it. The other grandfather just gave me stern looks and scared the hell out of me. He was the one that was in the Pacific Theater. He scared the hell out of me, but I had nothing but love for him because I knew he was a badass. He was a badass. So that moves me. That moves me. It moved me to want to teach. It moved me to want to teach U.S. history. It moved me to understand the importance of conveying who we are as a people to this generation coming and the generations coming after them. That's important to me. It should be important to you. And yes, I threw in a little bit of the political tonight because, damn it, I can tell you this much. Some of them, the way they were then, back then, yeah, they'd probably be a little disappointed in how we're at each other's throats when we have far greater opponents and greater enemies that would love to do us harm? The last thing we need to do is be fighting amongst ourselves. That's just stupid. You know, I don't like using the word, but I only use it with purpose and principle. That's just stupid. It's not smart. If we want to do this right, let's honor the let's honor the concept, the collaboration, the cooperation of what that was. All right, you want to be great? Do that. Do that. Follow their lead. We know history. We should want to know more. Follow their lead, because the things that they did, I mean, they're quite literally the reasons why we exist today. And I'm going to say it. I know at least my grandfathers would tell me the same thing. You know, obviously they've passed a long, long time ago for me, but the times that I did talk to them when I was a young boy, it led me to serve. Same thing. I believe in my country and I believe in principle. And I believe in this. So that's my D-Day for you. I hope you learned a few things, and I hope you understand the emotion that it conveys for me. If not for you, then I'm trying to move you that way and get you to understand that it's not just about what we feel, but it's quite literally about what we feel out and what we do with it. You have families. You have sons. You have daughters. Perhaps some of you even have grandsons and granddaughters and maybe more. Ladies and gentlemen, instill in them the value and the importance of something like D-Day, which is easy. It's easy. There's no negative at all to it. It's simple. You could even do this in a bipartisan fashion, heaven forbid, or even better yet, you can do this in a nonpartisan fashion entirely. There's no need for party or politics in this. It's just all American, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it was. You didn't look at the guy next to you and say, hey man, where did you come from? Hey, who's your dad? Hey, how much money do you have in the bank? Hey, what's your party? Hey, what's your religion? No, they all work together. They all work together, because if they didn't live. They didn't survive. They died. That's my thought for you tonight. So we're going to go off air in a little second here, but I'm going to give you a few. I'm going to throw you for a curve. And I am over my time now, so I got to hustle. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you, because we didn't do Tag That Track last week, I'm going to give you what I'm listening to quite literally right now. Some of them are the same, and it's only going to be a handful, but I'm going to tell you why in a second. Okay, got these because I had a guy ask me, like, so what do you listen to day to day? And I was like, I've got, playlists. I've got a bunch of playlists. But the one I've been listening to a lot lately, and the songs are some are old. Some of you guys that have been with me for a while now, you've probably heard them before. But what I do is I have a playlist, and then as I'm listening to current music, I pick one or two that I really like. I don't listen to just current music all the time. I listen to music that I like in a different genre or others, and then maybe I strike a fancy. I want to listen to some 70s country. Maybe I want to listen to some 80s punk. Maybe I want to listen to 90s alt. Maybe I want to listen to some Motown again. So I kind of, my playlist is all really, really eclectic and really, really varied on a timeline as well, not just genre. So I add a good song I hear today to that list, and I couple that with good songs from the past and good songs from the present, and those are in essence my list. So here's some for you. I'm going to give you some that I'm listening to right now. All right, let's see. I didn't even bring my... Could I hear it on this mic? We should be good. Okay. And I think the problem is, I did it again. I need to bring my speaker. I like when I have my speaker, though. It makes it easier. All right, let's see if you guys can hear this.
Waking up to kiss you and nobody's there. The smell of your perfume still stuck in the air. It's hard. Yesterday I thought I saw your shadow running around.
That's fairly current, not too. It's a few months old. Really like that song. I mean, just great little acoustic guitar, great tune, great vocal. Really like that song. All right, here's another. I played this one too much, but it's still good. I've been listening to this for a half year and I still listen to it.
Baby, lay on back and relax. Kick your pretty feet up on my dash. No need to go nowhere fast. Let's enjoy right here where we at. Who knows where this road is supposed to lead? We
gonna have to cut it there. Remember, I've been busted before. If you guys go back into my videos, there's a couple where I actually got cut by YouTube for going a little bit further on time. So I got to remember. All right, but that one's a great one. And before the female lead comes in, you guys probably already know what it is, but great song. I still listen to that right now. All right, this one's newer within the last handful of months, and it's moving up the charts rapidly because it's that good. How did that go? There we go.
And the shit's unflattering, all up in my head again. I don't feel myself right now.
I really like that song. I love that song. So much so, I was listening to that song, and this young gal's got plenty of good ones, but I was listening to that, and I'm like, damn, that's really good. It made me go back and add her breakout song from years ago, a number of years ago, and I had to add it in.
I've cussed on a Sunday, I've cheated and I've lied, I've fallen down from grace a few too many times, but I find holy redemption.
So that little girl is like, she's impressing me. She's not been around a long time, but I'm telling you, I mean, when I think of country, like good country, girls, women, she's good. I mean, it's good. So the other song was more recent, just came out, and it made me go back and listen to this one because this was kind of her breakout song. All right, so I got a few more, but watch this. I'm going to throw KP for a curve. You ready, KP? You ready for a curve? Kind of. He's like, oh, what are you talking about? KP, so I've not done this yet, and I don't forget you. While I'm finishing up these last couple of songs, KP's going to give me 2 songs that he wants, just whatever you're listening to right now. Let's see what you got, all right? So let me play 2 here. KP's going to work on that. Nothing too major, 'cause I'm sure he listens to music. All right, here we go. Got to have this because that's my girl.
Got a boy back home in Michigan, and it tastes like Jack when I'm kissing.
Yeah, I know. You guys are used to that song. I'm still listening to it. And I'm going to continue to still listen to it until I puke. But the one there's actually another one that's more recent, far closer. This was a couple years ago, that song. But, she released another album. She's got new songs. She's got constant songs. She did a song with the K-pop band BTS that is global now, massive. Really smart move on her part as an artist. All right, I've got one more before we cut to KP's 2. Got one more. Now watch this. So what I did was putting these songs together, right? And as I was doing that, I'm like, what do I think of when I think of that time, D-Day, World War II? And I said to myself, what could, because this is big band era. Reminder, right? Okay, this was before rock and roll. This was before the concept of the single, soloist, singer, rock star up front. It was still big band era, all right? A different time in the 40s, out of the 40s and into the 50s. So I was like, what one song immediately takes me back there? But more importantly, not just me, because I'm kind of a history geek, but America, and not kids obviously today, not as much, but my daughter had to listen to this song and she loved it. And there you go. I take a millennial and I make that millennial relevant with my history and history of the past. So this millennial, little girl I call my daughter, she knows the song and she loved the song. And when she had to do research on it, she played the hell out of it for like a week straight. Just would not stop playing it. So here we go. You're going to like this one. Come on. And you got to dance too.
He was a famous trumpet man from out Chicago way. He had a boogie style that no one else could play. He was a top man at his craft. But then his number came up and he was gone with the draft. He's in the army now, a blowing reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle bar of Company B.
There you go. If that ain't World War II, if that ain't all Americana, I don't know what is. That's about as good as it gets. So I'm bringing it up, like I said, because it's apropos for the day, right? For what we're doing tonight. But I'm gonna say this again to you before we're gonna get to KP in a second here because he's gonna give me his songs. I threw him for a loop. But I want you to understand this. My daughter's a millennial, and she likes these things too. Why? You got to introduce them, ladies and gentlemen. You got to introduce them. You got to give them background. You got to give them some history. You got to explain to them why it was that good at that time, and then bring out the nuance and the subtlety. That's a catchy little tune. 70, 80 years ago, as much as it is today. It's like, it gets you to move. It's like, whoa, okay, different instrumentation. There's a bugle. There's other parts because it was big band and the sisters that sang it. But here you go. Watch this. On D-Day, on a cheap date Friday night, we are responsible for what they don't know. All right? That's on us. Don't just blame the teacher that didn't teach them that. Don't just blame the parents that didn't do their job. It's a societal thing. Okay? If we're sitting here complaining about what they're not, we're complaining about ourselves. My daughter loves that song. All right? You guys guess it. Some of you are going to guess it. My daughter loves that song. She thinks it's the coolest thing she'd ever heard for music that came before there was actually the concept of rock and roll. She listened to the hell out of it. And she's a millennial. Just graduated high school. All right, so here we go. We're going to include my homeboy KP, Mad Productions, KP1 Studios, and he's going to give us his tune. And just so you know,
my turn now, huh?
I totally did not, there's no prep here for this. I just literally just asked KP to provide me with 2 songs that he's listening to right now.
Okay, I'll say one. Here we go. Probably heard this song.
Okay, I got you.
I think it's the piano's now just to understand.
Yeah.
That's a well-known song.
That's a good one.
Of course, and my other song, of course,
So they're like, hold on, is this like in your playlist or something, or is like just good stuff?
It's inspiring. These songs that I love.
Okay, there you go.
I love the inspirations.
Powerful message, great lyric, great. Right. Got you.
And of course, and then this is a song that I listen to because I'm an island boy.
Uh-oh.
I'm an island boy.
Islander.
Grew up in Hawaii. So, if you're from Hawaii, or grew up in Hawaii, sit here. Okay, that's enough. You probably don't know that song.
You know what I'm trying to? I don't.
If you don't grew up in Hawaii, it's more of the island reggae Hawaiian style music. Everybody knows from Is Real from Over the Rainbow, Big Man.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the one, but from Hawaii. But I grew up in Hawaii, so I listen to a lot of the local bands in Hawaii.
All right, so you got me.
These guys that come a lot they play a lot out here. They're
right.
Mainstream.
Right.
They started with the island, so I love island music.
So some reggae there.
Relaxing.
Relax, right? Relax.
Just chilling out. You with your friends and out on the beach and just enjoying the breeze.
Yeah.
Enjoying the life. That's
Man, you're making me want to go to Hawaii. You're making me want to go to Hawaii. He's making me want to go to Hawaii. Okay, good. So you threw me for a loop because I didn't know that one.
Yeah.
And SuperMex is a bright guy, but I don't know everything. Hey, listen, half of the time, let's just say 99% of the time, being really bright, being brilliant, is about knowing what you don't know. And I fully acknowledge I don't know everything, but you actively work to try. That's the biggest trick. Okay, so before we go off, I'm going to show you this little piece here. Can you get a close-up on this, KP? So get this out. Turn it this way, turn it that way. There you go. There you go. All right, you guys see that? That was special for tonight. I have a few of these pins. I have a few more, but this one for obvious reasons. See if any of you guys know what that is, and you guys can hit me up. Hit me on the Facebook, see if you understand the relevance of it. I think you know what it is. So that one was definitely special for tonight. I'm going to go home and I'm going to have a great weekend. All families in house. Life is good. And you know the deal. I'm going to tell you guys, go out, live. I'm going to say this again with a little greater degree of sincerity and severity today. Strap in. I do believe it's going to get worse on the political end. Don't care which party you're in. It's going to get worse. You're going to think you're right. You're going to think those others are wrong. And the other people on the other side are doing the exact same thing. And where does that move us? Nowhere. And it's getting ugly. All right, so you come here because it's not ugly. You come here for character, conduct, code of ethics, some civility. There's a lot of C words for you. And definitely some courtesy. That's why you come back here. Even when I don't agree with you, and even when I say something you may not like, you always know that I'm not doing it from a place of malice or hate. I do not do that. Okay? I warned you earlier this past week, on the Monday, I believe, and going back to last week. This is specifically for the forum, okay? SuperMex Nation, the group in the Facebook page. Some of you need to get a hard handle on what you're doing, all right? You're posting with hate. You're posting with anger. Some of you guys are bordering, if not already, on doing things that you shouldn't be doing. I've implemented a newer set of rules, and I'm going to add to it. If I end up with two people in there having great conversation that's honest, fair, open, and clean, then I'll do it with two people. And I think you guys should know better than to question me and to challenge me on that, because that's what I'll do. If I have to shut the thing down, I will. I didn't go through this D-Day 2 or 3 days of reliving things that my grandfathers did to make this country incredible and to make it what it is, so that I can be okay with putting out a page where it's vitriol and venom on a daily basis. Not happening, ladies and gentlemen. Find common ground. Find some good stuff to talk about. Am I saying stay away from contentious issues? Absolutely not. But make sure your code of conduct in putting that stuff forward is coming from a good place. Because if not, I'll remove you. I'll remove you. Most of you have been pretty good. A handful of you guys, you need to seriously think about what you're doing. Wake up. Grow up. Be better about it. Remember, it's not just you on this damn planet. Got a lot of other people to live around. That's why this, tonight, that's why that generation, those people, were able to do the things they did. Know your history. There's a history lesson for you tonight. A great one from some incredible people that quite literally, some cases, we may not even deserve anymore. All right, let's live up to their let's live up to their sacrifice. That's my show for you tonight. Be safe. I'll see you back on Monday. Number love for you. SuperMex Nation is out.